Okay, time for another astrology reading. It has been a minute since I've done one of these, but sensing some of what's going on in the larger collective as well as what is happening with some of my coaching clients and friends, it felt appropriate to do a little interpretation of what's going on in the stars to offer a little insight into what I see going on right now. And for those of you who know my work, you are aware that I have created a system called the Eternal Dragon, which is a synthesis of tarot and astrology and all of these different esoteric sciences. What I like to do now is to use a traditional astrology chart, but also combine it with insights from these cards, which puts together this mathematical precision of the astrology chart and what's happening in the planets through these literal celestial influences of physical objects with this randomness of drawing a card. And I have a group set up right now where I have a random card generated every day, and it's very fascinating to look at what the card was today on the day that I decided to do this reading. So let's dive right into it. All right. So the card of today, this is today's astrology chart, but the card today is Samsara. Samsara. Samsara is such an interesting one, and Samsara is the 8th level of the underworld. And this is derived from the underworld mythologies that have 9 levels from many different cultures around the world. Dante's Inferno, from the Aztec Popol Vuh, from the Norse mythology. They all have this 9-level underworld that have these kind of common coherent archetypes. And the 8th level, and it's all numeric and geometric based, all of these different number systems. So the number 8 is a representation of infinity. The 8 is an infinity sign. It is the 8 points that exist in the cycling of a torus. It's the totality of everything that can exist in all possible timelines. And so the underworld expression of the number 8 is the infinity of suffering. Samsara means wheel of suffering in Sanskrit, and it's this notion that this Buddhist adage that life is suffering. And the thing about this, though, is it's not that we're just doomed to suffer forever, but that in this phase of existence that we live in, there are these cycles of suffering that are the catalyst for our evolution to happen. And while it can be incredibly painful and seem eternal while we're in it, it's through this cycling of the process of samsara that we are evolved into something transcendent. And so that's the meaning of this card, and that's kind of the overview. Feels very appropriate considering what's happening in the astrology chart. So I wanted to give that as like a little framing overview from which to think about everything that's happening in these celestial patterns right now. So, my phone died. Oh, no. It's funny. It's 11:11 right now. Okay, here we go. So this is the chart for the full moon this Friday, 6:56 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to speak to a few different levels of what is happening in this chart. And first of all, I want to talk to some of the dynamics unfolding in the outer planets. Outer planets meaning everything past the asteroid belt. So Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and some of these outer solar system asteroids. And these outer planets really dictate what's going on in the broader collective field, where the inner planets are more related to our personal lives because the inner planets move at a much faster rate. So in a birth chart, for example, someone might have Venus in a certain sign, and then someone born a couple months later could have Venus in a different sign. Versus there is an entire generation of 20 years that has Pluto in the same sign, because Pluto takes 20 years to move from one sign into the next. So these outer planets are affecting everybody at once in a collective way, in a much bigger sense. And that's mainly what I want to go into here, because there's these patterns that I see unfolding, and I see it happening in different people's lives in different ways. And looking at the framing of the samsara, I really have seen, in my own life and in a lot of people I know, it's like all these kinds of setbacks and family emergencies and broken bones and different things of this kind of nature. It can leave us with this feeling of like, what the fuck? Like, why are we still here in this suffering pattern? I want to speak to some of what's going on with the planets, because I think it could give some elucidation to the patterns that are unfolding and like what to expect in an archetypal sense going forward. So the first thing I want to address, there's a couple major things happening with some big planetary shifts. The first one I want to name is Neptune. Neptune here is right on the cusp of Pisces and Aries. Neptune, the little trident, 29 degrees 56 minutes Pisces, right in the final minutes of Pisces. And this is very interesting because Neptune's native sign is Pisces. And what is Neptune? Neptune is really the last planet. Pluto and these other objects out into the solar system are these like very small, almost asteroids. Pluto's been demoted to a dwarf planet, actually. It's not technically considered a planet. So technically, Neptune is the final planet in the solar system. And it's the last like big major celestial body in the solar system before getting out into these Kuiper Belt objects. And so it's really the boundary of the unknown, of the deep subconscious. And it's this representation of water, Neptune as the god, being the god of the ocean. So it's the deep subconscious that lives in the waters of the ocean. And Pisces is Neptune's native sign. Pisces is all about this depth of the subconscious, the deep dream. And so Neptune coming to the right to the final minutes of Pisces is really this moment of stuff that's been unfolding in the subconscious about to wake up into the dawn of Aries. Aries is the sunrise. As the cusp of Pisces into Aries is the moment between sleeping and waking. It's like coming out of that dream state into awareness. And so Neptune being about to come into Aries is like all this work that's been happening in the subconscious about to be awakened. But the thing is Neptune has come right to the edge, and now it has gone stationary retrograde as of the day of the full moon, and it's about to retrograde and go backwards. And so it's going to drift backwards and not actually cross the boundary of Pisces and Aries, and then start to, I'm going to just fast forward here through the months. So over the next couple months, it's going to retrograde, go backwards, and then it goes direct again in January. And then it's not until early February that Neptune will start to crest into Aries. See, 14 degrees Aries, and this is April we're talking about, but it's the end of February. It's starting to go back. It finally go into Aries. So I'm going to reverse, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so here's the full moon again. So that's what's happening with Neptune. At the same time, Pluto is doing a similar move. Pluto has just gone over the cusp of Capricorn into Aquarius. Pluto is at 1 degrees 16 minutes Aquarius right now, so it actually has crossed over the edge. This Pluto Capricorn era, this past 20 years or so of Pluto being in Capricorn, has been this unearthing of things that exist in the area of governance, of law, of intentions and plan setting. And so it's like all of this upheaval in those realms. So Pluto is the underworld god. So it's like bringing up from the underworld, like what exists in whatever sign that it's traversing. And so Pluto has now crossed into Aquarius. So we're going into this era where it's much more about the revelation of truth. That's Aquarius, and teamwork and connecting with other people. It's an interesting dawning age, considering that we're also going into the age of Aquarius, which is this much broader cycle in the precession of the equinoxes. But Pluto is going to retrograde also. It's retrograde right now, and it's going to go backwards over the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius, drift back into Capricorn, very interestingly be still in Capricorn during the election in November, and then go retrograde again and start to come into Aquarius, and then stay in Aquarius for the next 20 years. And so we've got these two planets that are just hovering over this like shifting moment into the next iteration of what they're going to be embodying. Very interesting. Saturn also has just gone retrograde. Saturn is also in Pisces. And this is an interesting one too, that it's like not just Neptune in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces too. So it's not just this diving deep into the depths of the subconscious, but it's the challenges that emerge in that through Saturn. And Saturn is also conjuncting Nessus here. Nessus is a very interesting asteroid. We see here Saturn 19 degrees Pisces, Nessus 19 degrees 54 minutes, Saturn 19 degrees 24 minutes. Very close conjunction between Saturn and Nessus. And these outer asteroids called centaurs I track, which are very interesting. And I'll give a quick little digression into an explanation of the asteroids real quick. There's tons of asteroids, thousands and thousands of asteroids in the solar system, but there are a few of them that are bigger objects that are interesting to pay attention to in particular, and that get tracked in astrology. So there's these 4 major asteroids that exist in the asteroid belt, so in the boundary between Mars and Jupiter, like pretty close in the solar system, and that's Ceres, Pallas, Vesta, Juno. And these 4 represent kind of these 4 major feminine archetypes. Don't have to get into that right now. But there's these outer asteroids called the centaurs: Pholus, Chiron, Nessus, Chariklo. And there's a couple more too, but these are the major ones that get tracked. And the centaurs traverse the orbits of Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter. And so they're crossing through these outer planets. And so the centaurs are really, they're doing this weaving in their dance of weaving the patterns of these outer planets together. And so connecting the old and the new, bridging the gap between these different layers of reality. And the centaurs are very interesting because they have these, I forget what the technical name is for it, but they have an orbital period that's going to spin out and leave the solar system in a couple million years. So they're these temporary influences that will not exist at some point, far in the future. But so Nessus, a lot of people are familiar with Chiron. Chiron is here. I'll speak to Chiron in a little bit, and Chiron's conjunction with Eris, which is happening right now. But Nessus is kind of like a counterpoint to Chiron. Chiron is this wounded healer, and so it's where our personal deepest wounds lie, is what Chiron represents. But Nessus has to do with ancestral healing. It's healing the wounds that have been passed down to us. And so Saturn conjuncting Nessus, both retrograde, is like this challenge, bringing up the obstacle of the ancestral wounding in Pisces, in the deep subconscious. So there's this real like unearthing of the subconscious, like old wounding patterns that can be really deep and far into not just lineage, but into these transpersonal layers of what we are as these infinite energetic beings. So all of that is happening. At the same time, this Chiron-Eris conjunction is here. Chiron, as I said, is the wounded healer. Eris is the discord planet. Eris is this kind of like wild feminine, like creator of chaos. And so them conjunct is this like wounding around this discord in Aries. Aries is the sign of identity and asserting our personal will. And so there's this whole like wounding healing happening around personal identity that is moving through the collective right now. And this pattern has been going on for like a year or two now, and will continue for the next couple of years, because both of these outer planets move very, very slowly, have a super long orbital period. So it's for the next 2 years or so, I believe, this pattern is going to be still operating. So yeah, even into 2027, Eris 26 degrees, Chiron 4 degrees Taurus. This is still considered a conjunction. Within 10 degrees is still a conjunction, depending on how you want to measure it. It's getting lighter, but it's like still really for the next couple of years or so, that pattern is going to be active. So coming back to now, seeing all of this happening, and then at the same time as all of this is going on, we're in Cancer season. Sun and Moon conjunct in Cancer. Cancer is like the celebrating and coming together with people. Cancer is the time of year when weddings happen. Cancer is the era of young love. It's connecting with people and celebrating. And so it's this time of that, and it's this most kind of like verdant time of year. Here I am in upstate New York. It's July, and the green is just bursting outside. It's a really beautiful, vibrant, alive time of year and time of the day. But then all these other patterns are unfolding at the same time. So these are these dark nighttime signs, the Pisces and Capricorn, Aquarius up here. And so there's these aspects happening where it's like, okay, the sun-moon conjunction is happening. At the same time, Venus in Cancer too. So it's like finding the joy in the connection with other people. Also, Mercury in Leo. Mercury starting to go into the sign of asserting our own creativity and our own will. Leo is this like leadership and sovereignty and our own creativity. So our mind's starting to go into that place. And Mercury conjuncting Vesta too, which is the asteroid that represents the innocent young maiden. So it's like the stepping forward with this, the innocent, joyful expression of play and exploration, and bringing that into our mental landscape. And both of those things are interestingly opposing Pluto. So there's this tension between what's being unearthed in these deeper underworld things and, you know, stepping into these like joyous, more light kind of energies. And with any opposition, it's like, how can that dynamic tension be resolved? How can we bring this energy of joyful play and connection into these realms that might be this this kind of like deep uncovering of what's been hidden? Very important to balance all of these things. And then at the same time, this magic triangle being formed between, it's kind of loose and hard to see here because there's a lot of lines, but we've got a magic triangle being formed between Venus and Uranus and Pluto. So a magic triangle is a very beneficial aspect. While there's this hard opposition, there's also this gentle influence, which is, you can see the green lines and the blue lines here with Uranus. And so we have Uranus, Mars, and Jupiter providing these kind of like gentle, beneficial influences to these kind of like hard patterns that are happening. Uranus and Mars, both in Taurus, is like this invitation to revolutionizing the way that we work, finding energy in the way that we work, and staying with this steady discipline and finding our equanimity and our center through that. And so Mars is also making a sextile with Saturn. So that's the blue lines and the green lines are beneficial influences, and the red lines are challenging influences. So while there's also this, you know, this T-square, which is this big red triangle connecting Venus and Chiron and Eris, and Pluto, which is like, okay, that's a challenging aspect. Like everything I said about what's happening with Pluto is even more of a challenge because of this Eris-Chiron conjunction, and then it's even more clashing with Venus and Cancer. But at the same time, there's this gentle influence of Uranus of like, okay, how can we change the way that we find our steadiness through it? And there's this great power in that. And there's also this available energy of Mars to have a steadiness through it. And Mars making this gentle sextile with Saturn Nessus also. Also at the same time, interestingly, Neptune is making a sextile with Pluto. Very close aspect here. Because Pluto 1 degrees Aquarius, Neptune 29 degrees Pisces. So that sextile is within 2 degrees. So it's a very close aspect. That's a you know, when the aspects are more exact, it is more powerful. And so despite these patterns both being challenging, it's like there is a beneficial synergy happening between these two. Okay, and then lastly, Jupiter Gemini. Throughout all of this, and it's like Jupiter is only making an aspect with Mercury right now. So throughout all of this, all of these patterns happening, it's like expand into connection. Gemini is connection and communication with other people. So while there's all this like unearthing of the subconscious and wounding happening in our personal identity and the unfolding of these underworld patterns and like how we govern like larger structures and how we come together as teams, it's like, can we connect to people in this personal way, in these immediate arenas? Gemini is this realm of like conversation and getting together with friends and supporting each other. And that's so these Mars and Uranus in Taurus, heavily helping us with the equanimity and staying steady. Jupiter inviting us to expand into connecting with people, and then this celebration with and you know, the joy of being with people in of the Cancer season, Sun and Moon, new moon in Cancer, and Venus in Cancer also. So all in all, that's some of what's going on. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So looking at the coming weeks after this, as we fast forward, we're seeing Mars starting to go into Gemini too. So it's a continued opening energy of that communication of Gemini happening. These outer planets are all going retrograde. They're going to stay retrograde for a while, and then I believe, yes, Uranus goes retrograde in September, and then I think, yes, so then Jupiter is going to go retrograde in October. So then starting in October, we've got all the outer planets retrograde again. Jupiter, Uranus, Eris and Chiron, Neptune, Saturn, Nessus, Pluto also. So then, right around the time of the election, Pluto's going to go direct again, still in Capricorn though. It's starting to move forward to bring the energy out of that Capricorn energy. That's a very, very interesting correspondence happening. And then over the coming months, we see Saturn going direct again, Neptune going direct again, and then gradually all the other outer planets go direct, so that by late February of 2025, all of the outer planets are going to go direct. So we can expect this next period through the coming months to be this kind of like shifting. It might feel like regressing, it might feel like going back into the wheel of samsara, but it's through going through the cycles that we're actually being evolved. And so it may feel like this returning spiral, but it's part of the necessary process to move through it and grow into the next phase of what we're evolving into. Okay, so hope that was helpful. Hope you enjoyed that. If you want to learn more about astrology or the Eternal Dragon or any of this work that I'm doing, you can click the link below to visit theeternaldragon.com. Check out my socials, my other content and things I've got going on there. I hope you all have a very blessed day, and much love to you all.